What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL podcast, the official podcast of the All 22 fantasy football platform. It's the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. To learn more and sign up, go to all-22.com or go to the App Store and download the app today. Ray, we are in a very interesting time of year right now. Actually, first off, I hope everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving. It was a great holiday for us. We had an amazing time. Ray and I got to play some football together. I played a little quarterback, Ray. I was, the team was in need and I had to throw the ball and, I did all right. We were playing with like a K2, so it worked out well for me.
Yeah, totally. Because there's no film, you can absolutely say that. So we'll roll with it.
What? Yeah, no, some absolute dimes from me. Ray, You did all right too, if I remember correctly. Couple big catches.
That's just a day just another day at the office. That's all.
Yeah, Ray wouldn't shut up about running this one kid over in a non-contact two-hand touch game, but it's fine, whatever.
I was trying to spin. I was trying to spin. You just can't move like you used to once there's a 3 at the start of your age. It doesn't work the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yours ends in a 3-2 now, so you're pretty up there.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting time of year because now we are in the last week before the playoffs. The last week of the regular season is here in fantasy football. I can't believe I'm saying that. It feels like the season's still young, but somehow we're here. And Ray, I wanted to bring this up because for those of you that don't know, the first league we ever started was in an Excel sheet back in the day when this was just an idea, a twinkle in our eye. And we called the league the inaugural league, and we got all our friends from home to join. And that's really been the main league that we, do or die, pay attention to above all else. And Ray and I are currently 1-2 first place for first place in the standings in the NFC division. I don't even know if Ray was aware of that, but we are both 10-3, divisional record, both 6-2. But I have you in points scored at the moment. So this is a huge week for us. I just lost a game to Bobby. So you caught up this week. And this next week is going to decide everything. I have a hard game against Francis. You're playing Bobby, who just beat me. So we'll see. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd call Francis a hard game, but, makes for great podcasting because everyone cares about your fantasy football team. Isn't that part of the intro? But yeah.
That's right. The reason I brought it up is because I said we're tied in standings in overall record and we're tied in divisional record. So why am I above you? And I wanted to make sure people understood, right? With the playoffs about to be decided, right? Who's going to make it, who's not? How is our seeding done? How is it developed? So all leagues have 2 divisions, right? You can name them whatever you want. In ours, it's AFC, NFC. I think that's the standard. You and I are in the NFC, so I'll use that as the example. The top team, whoever finishes first place, will get a bye in the playoffs. That top team, how is it decided? Like I said, it's first looking at overall record. So if I was 10-3 and Ray was 9-4, I would just be the clear number 1. But since we were both 10-3, it then goes to the divisional record. The divisional record, if I was 6-2 and Ray was 5-3, I would win and I would be a clear winner. But that's not the case. We were both 6-2. It then goes to total points scored, and that in this case was the deciding factor. I'm number 1, Ray's number 2. So that will decide that number 1 seed. And that is the case for each seed from there, right? The second seed and the third seed, right? Those 2 teams, it's going to be decided the same way, but those 2 teams will be playing each other in the first round of the playoffs. So the playoffs work similar to the NFL, where there's the NFC and the AFC. It stays in the division, right? The playoff stays within the division, and then they play in the Super Bowl. You might have different fantasy leagues at home where it's, the seeding is kind of crazy and both leagues are combined and it's just the top 2 teams, whatever. That's not the case here. It's top teams 1, 2, 3 in the division. 2 and 3 play each other. Those teams will play the 1 seed. The winner of that game goes to the Super Bowl. So yes, Ray, I am above you right now, but this week does matter. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. Just so it allowed us to explain the system a little bit better. Did I do it clearly? Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think he did it clearly. I'm someone who knows we built the system, so of course it's going to be clear to us. But yes, it's the 6 teams make the playoffs. You think of the NFC and AFC, they're divisions, but they're also conferences, just like the NFL. So if you think of it that way, the number 1 seed in the conference gets the bye. The remaining teams have to battle it out, and in this case, it's 2 other teams in that conference. So that's what your bracket looks like. The 2 and 3 teams play to winner goes against the number 1 seed in that bracket, and then winner of that game is in the Super Bowl for all 22 for all the marbles. So yeah, I think they did a good job there.
Cool. We talked about it last week, how there's 2 groups of people right now. It's these teams that are fighting for those playoff spots, excited to make their teams and their lineups, their depth charts as bulletproof as possible. And Ray, you wanted to do a little exercise, which I am not prepared for, but I will just do it on the fly, to talk about a do or die player. So explain to me what you want to do here.
Yeah, guys, it's week 14. So as Chris and I just sort of laid out there to you, right? We are comfortable. We're battling for a bye week, but we are in the playoffs. Many of you on the platform are battling for your playoff life this week. This is the final week of the regular season, and playoff spots are still up for grabs. So if that's the case, if you are battling for a playoff spot and you need one player that you need to count on at a premium position to have a breakout week to put you over the top, right? And we're not talking about, Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons or Jalen Carter. Like, yes, obviously the very top players at the premium positions are mainstays. You don't need a podcast. You don't need Chris and I to tell you that you need to rely on those players to win the game. But there are lots of good players at premium positions out there right now having great seasons that are going under the radar. One of them really burst onto the scene last night, and really he had done so a couple weeks back already. But we wanted to identify just each of us one player that you can rely on who's maybe not the most household name that could be the difference in your do or die matchup this week, week 14. And for me, I'm looking at someone who I've mentioned several times on this podcast. Some would call him the Sam Darnold of wide receivers. Both of these guys have been my pet cats for a long time, and I've just felt like they've never truly gotten a consistent opportunity, oftentimes to the environment or due to the environment around them, other times as a result of their own fault. But now we are starting to see them with a consistent opportunity. So this Sam Darnold-esque player of wide receivers is none other than, if you haven't already guessed it, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. So yes, he went for a gajillion yards last night in a loss in the most Jameis Winston game imaginable, right? That's if you just looked up Jameis Winston on Google, on Wikipedia, in a dictionary, just last night's game is what would be playing in the background, right? So Jerry Jeudy, though, quietly, or maybe not so quietly anymore, has been the second highest graded receiver in the NFL over the last 3 weeks, second only to Puka Nacua. Out of all receivers in the NFL, he has 3.45 yards per route run, which is 6th among wide receivers. So again, some of these talking points are pretty common now across all platforms. But yes, the inclusion of Jameis Winston at quarterback for the Browns has revived Jerry Jeudy's career season. How big do you want to go here? But essentially, we are now seeing the Jerry Jeudy that we thought we would see when he was a first-round pick, 4 years ago coming into the league. We're now finally getting to see this version of Jerry Jeudy who can get open deep, make big plays happen. They missed a 70-plus yard touchdown to him last night. He could have actually had over 300 receiving yards against his former team, the Denver Broncos. But again, this isn't a one-week thing. This has now been going on for the last 3 weeks. One of them a snow game, which is obviously not conducive for the type of receiver that Jerry Jeudy is. And now he has a matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I always like to say, styles make fights. Joey Porter Jr. is a physical corner, likes to really muck things up and get into a rock fight at the line of scrimmage. Jerry Jeudy is like a release king, just going ahead and he will make you whiff and miss and create separation early on his routes. early and easy separation. That's not a good matchup style-wise for Joey Porter Jr. and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And on the other side there, if you think the answer to that is then putting Dante Jackson on Jerry Jeudy with the way that Judy's been playing, good luck with that too. So wide receiver is the second highest paid position on the platform, the second highest weighted position on the platform. So it's a premium spot. It's an important spot in the season. And I think this is a place where you can comfortably put Jerry Jeudy in as your wide receiver, let's say 2, one of your starters in your lineup, and he can make a difference this week when your season is on the line. So I'm going with Jerry Jeudy. Yes, I've been waiting for this day where I could finally say, here's the Jerry Jeudy that we evaluated 4 years ago. Go ahead and put him in your lineup. That day has come. I am comfortable putting Jerry Jeudy in my lineup with the playoffs on the line.
I hate that it's working out for him just because I'm usually the guy that's against being a hater for players, but I am the Jerry Jeudy hater and I'll live by that. I'll be the villain here. And you know what? I'll give it to you, man. Cause I complain about Broncos QBs every single year and why quarterbacks that land there typically don't work out, unless Sean Payton decides to be the head coach of the team and draft the guy, handpick his own guy in Bo Nix, which is working out great so far. But Jerry Jeudy didn't have Bo Nix, right? He had the historically bad Broncos quarterbacks over his entire career. So it is interesting to see that it took him not even going to a different team because he went to a team that had a bad quarterback, but to see that quarterback replaced with Jameis Winston before we got to see the Jerry Jeudy breakout is kind of awesome, right? It's a Cinderella story. It's what Disney makes movies about. Maybe they'll do one here.
Totally.
But it's funny you said that game because I'm picking somebody from last night too. And I'm going to say something that you're going to be like, I have no recollection of you saying this, Chris, but there's a guy that I liked in the draft that I know you weren't as high on. And I'm going to put a little feather in my cap in Nick Bonito, the edge rusher on the Broncos.
I knew exactly who you were going to say. As soon as you said all that, I knew exactly where you were going with this.
Oh, so you do remember that I liked him.
Yeah, I was like, he's going to say the light in the ass pass rusher with no anchor. Yeah, he's going to go for it. I knew exactly where you were going.
Bonito's been incredible. He's been incredible, and he's exactly the type of player that we talk about, right? We talked about last week. There are positions where you stack your depth chart at certain positions because there's so much value if you hit on a guy. If you were like me and held on to Bonito over the last couple of years and went through kind of the trial and error of last year, it's starting to pay off for you. Bonito has 11 sacks on the season. His pass rush grade is 76.3. He actually gets put in coverage a decent amount and has an interception, 83.4 coverage grade, which is wild. He has a ton of hits, a ton of hurries, and he's just been a fantastic down in, down out player for the Broncos in a defense that desperately needed that, right? In the beginning of the season, I'm going to start you off week 1, 42.8 grade against Seattle, 64.5 against Pittsburgh, 60.4 against Tampa Bay, 41 against the Jets, 61.2 versus Vegas, 46 versus the Chargers. That's the first 6 weeks of the season, okay? From week 7 on, 77.6, 68.7, 76.9, 70.5 for the last 3 weeks, 90, 71, 92.3. I think he's arrived, all right? And this is a player that, again, if you have him and you need that shot in the dark to get you there, right? Maybe you weren't contending earlier on because you didn't have that edge rusher, but now you're close and there's a playoff spot with your name on it. Go ahead and put Bonito in your lineup, in your depth chart, start him at number 1, and hope that he does what he's been doing the last 3 weeks again and gets you that 90-plus graded game to get you into the playoffs. That's my guy.
Yeah, it's so predictably your guy. I'll just say I think next game is against the Indianapolis Colts. If I'm reading the schedule correctly, Bernard Raymond hasn't done too bad lately either, as another young player in his 3rd year lining up at tackle for the Colts who's done well. So that will be a good matchup of 2 ascending young players to keep in mind in that do or die matchup. So if you like watching the trenches and you're not just a ball watcher here, that's a good one to zero in on.
Love that matchup. Okay, so we talked about it, right? Those are the half of our listeners that are geared up for the playoffs. There's this other half of the users, of the listeners, that are sitting at home going, my season's done. Maybe it's been done for a while now. And I need to know about these prospects, and I need to know what draft pick I'm getting. So next week, draft picks will be determined. Ray, can you please explain how these slots will be given and awarded to the teams that miss out on the playoffs?
Yeah. So the most succinct way to explain it is that for the non-playoff teams, the draft picks are awarded based on your reverse ranking, or your reverse ranking in the standings from worst to first, or in this case, 12th to 7th, or 10th to 7th, or 8 onward, right? If you're in an 8-team league, I feel like most people like the 10 to 12, right? But essentially, if you did not make the playoffs, right, then it goes based on worst record. So if you had the worst record, you are picking number 1 overall, just flat out. You are in dead last place out of everybody who missed the playoffs. If there is a tie for worst record or second worst record, depending on which draft slot we're looking at here, the tiebreaker then is least points scored. So if you scored less points than the other team, who is 3-11, then you will be picking ahead of them in the draft. So similar to the NFL and their methods of the worst team having the higher draft pick, same thing here. But those are the tiebreakers, just sort of in reverse of the playoff standings, right? Now for the playoff teams, this is based on how you do in the playoffs, just like the NFL. So if you were the 6th seed in the playoffs, right, but you actually go ahead and win the whole darn thing, then you are picking last in the first round, right? Or your original draft pick is going to be last in a given round. So draft picks for playoff teams are not finalized. They are based off of those playoff performances, just like they are in the NFL. So if you're a wild card team and you make it all the way to the championship, you are picking last. So we do mirror the NFL in that way, as well as we always strive to do in mirroring the NFL in everything that we do at All 22. Chris, you were muted. You muted yourself while I was talking.
Shoot, I did. Because I was making notes. I was making notes. I was working hard, making sure I was ready for the next segment. And you did a great job explaining that. What we wanted to do is something for those users, right? Those users that are next week going to be determining where they're going to be picking. And I thought it would be fun, and this is what I didn't prepare you for, Ray, is for
you don't ever
those 6
prepare me
picks,
or anything. I just come on here and everything is just off the cuff. You never prepare me for anything.
You prepare very hard. People, he's lying. For the 6 teams that are not making the playoffs, let's have some fun. Let's go back to back, pick by pick, and say, who would I take as the ideal player and landing spot for each pick, 1 through 6?
Oh, gosh.
If you want me to go first, I'll go first. Yeah. So I did a little research, and I'll give you a moment to kind of catch your breath here. According to Fox Sports, as of November 26th, so pretty recent, Shedeur is currently favored to go number 1 at plus 170. Travis Hunter is second at plus 300. Cam Ward is third at plus 1100. Jalen Milroe plus 1900. Then Jackson Dart at 2600. Kelvin Banks at 2600. Abdul Carter at 2600. And Will Campbell at 2600. The list goes on from there, but some names that weren't on there that I thought was insane is McMillan, Graham, and Johnson. Those are 3 players that I think will probably be in our top 6 that weren't in that top odds to be the number 1 pick in the draft because of positional value, things like that, right? And also on the flip side, right now, the current draft standings are the Patriots are projected to be the number 1 pick, the Giants at 2, Panthers at 3, Raiders at 4, Jaguars at 5, Titans at 6, Browns at 7, and Jets at 8. But I think the Giants have the best odds to end up at number 1. And I think that's followed by the Patriots at 2. But for, we don't have to predict that. We're just going to say of those, maybe those top 8 teams and the top players, what matches do we think are the best? So the way I want to do this is maybe I'll go first, you go second, and we'll say if I'm on the clock, who's the player? What is the team that I want? You ready for this, Ray? You look scared.
Just go for it. I'm just going to wing like everything else I do on this podcast. So like we said,
you do a lot of work. Okay. I think if I was on the clock first, right? And we're playing all 22. This is dynasty football with all 22 positions on the field. They're weighted differently. Quarterback is by far the most important. If I am picking first, it's likely because my quarterback just didn't show up to work this year. And unfortunately, in a draft like this, where I think there are better players at other positions, I still probably need to go quarterback because the value is just too great. I think at this point in the season, Shedeur is my pick for the number one. But what team do I think makes the most sense? I think looking at the QB needy teams, right? It's the Giants, it's the Raiders, it's the Browns. Some could argue the Titans, some could argue the Jets are in there as well. But I think in reality, it's going to be the Giants, the Raiders, or the Browns that are going to make the biggest fuss to get to number one. So I think just trying to keep things fair, it's got to be one of those three teams. So I'm going to go with the Giants because I think the Giants did figure out the number one receiver position with Malik Neighbors. I think Andrew Thomas coming back next year healthy is going to be massive for that team. So you have the two other really important positions on the offense. Yes, you need more. Yes, you need depth on the O-line. Yes, you need Wan'Dale Robinson to step up and be a stud number two receiver. Jalen Hyatt to step up and really take the top off of the defense like he was meant to, right? There's still things that need to be done. But if you get the right quarterback in there, I think those pieces could start to come together. So if I am on the clock at pick one, I am going with Shedeur on the Giants for my all-22 team. Ray, you were on the clock at number two.
Well, I just want the viewers to understand if they are in a position where they have to take Shedeur Sanders 1 overall in their draft, just understand you are probably going to be picking very highly the next season as well, because there is no plug and play spot that a young quarterback is going to go into at the top of this draft and have immediate success. That's just not going to happen here. And that's even putting aside just the level of prospect versus in this year versus last, just things of that nature. So just keep that in mind and, just accept the reality there.
But you know what? One interesting thing about Shedeur that I'm looking forward to kind of seeing in the NFL, how it translates. I'm a big fan. I've talked about this. I'm a big fan of 4-year starters in college. And technically Shedeur is a 4-year starter, but 2 of those years were for D1 AA school. So does it translate the same? Like, is it actually even better for him? Because it was like a little progression in college and then he's going to have another progression in the NFL. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And I don't think we've seen it before in our time, at least. So something.
Look, for a quarterback who has to get rid of the ball, he is going to have to get rid of the ball sooner when he's behind that Giants offensive line. Even with Andrew Thomas, it's just he's going up against the Eagles defensive line, the Micah Parsons and what they got going on there in Dallas as well. Another 2 times a year. He's gonna need to get rid of the football much earlier or sooner than he currently does when he's in the NFL. So he's either going to be forced into that or he's going to be pretty battered and bruised. So we'll see. They're gonna force him to work on his biggest flaw early in that scenario. So if I'm on the clock next, I'm at 2 overall. I am not going to force another quarterback here because, quite frankly, outside of Shedeur Sanders, there is not one worthy of the number 2 overall pick. There just is not. There is no Drake Maye in this class. There is no Jaden Daniels. There is no Caleb Williams. Those guys just are not here. Shedeur at least has the precision, the kind of pinpoint accuracy there, even if he doesn't have the arm slots or the tendency to get rid of the ball on time. He at least has the traits to where you can take a quarterback like him highly in your all-22 draft. So I'm going to look elsewhere, and not necessarily because of position value, because I think this is a nice marriage between position value and actual talent, but I am going to go with Tetairoa McMillan here at wide receiver. And I think his best landing spot, at least long-term, would be the New England Patriots. They got Drake Maye. They have themselves a quarterback. They need wide receivers. Yes, they need offensive line too. But their quarterback is showing great flashes, more than anyone could have reasonably expected. And Christmas clocks are back. It's that time of year. I'm just going to talk through it. But yes, they have the quarterback. That was the biggest question. They have it now. They have a big need at wide receiver. They still need offensive line. But now you have your battery, so to speak, your quarterback and receiver for the next decade. between Drake Maye and Tet McMillan. To me, it makes all the sense in the world. That would be the best landing spot for McMillan. He's going to have his quarterback. I think it makes a lot of sense here.
I like that pick. And it's interesting to me to see what the Patriots will end up doing if they are the number 2 team in the draft, right? Right now, they have the second best odds to be number 1. That means right now they're projected to be number 2. If McMillan is on the clock and they know that's a massive need, will they go that route instead of Travis Hunter, who you and I talked is, that his best spot is likely corner? They already have Christian Gonzalez. Do they really need to spend that valuable of a pick on another corner? Probably not. Will they draft him to play wide receiver? Maybe. Maybe that's the route they go. But McMillan does make a lot of sense for that Patriots team. I love Jalen Polk as a number 2 or 3 receiver, Javon Baker as the other one. I think those guys get a lot better if they are not put in that position to be the guy, right? And I think they both needed development time, which is why they're not getting a lot of play time this year. And there are other receivers there that are decent to help McMillan. I like that pick a lot. I'm a little jealous of it, because now I am on the clock at number 3, and I'm going to make you a little bit jealous as well. And the only reason I'm going this route and not going Travis Hunter here is because I don't think the teams that need him would take him at this spot. I also think corner is such a volatile position in all 22. It's so hard to get one that is year over year that consistent. It just makes it that much more difficult, right, to pick him at number 3. I think the Panthers could really go and get Abdul Carter, pair him with Derek Brown on the interior, and start making that defense scary again. Abdul Carter, you talked about last time, fantastic pass rusher. I think right now he is the highest edge rusher in the game. To me, that is the most valuable position left to be taken. And again, I think the need for the Panthers is just massive, and he can slot in and be a real difference maker when Derek Brown comes back to play next to him.
Yeah, they have to replace Brian Burns, and I think it's fair to say this would be an upgrade. I think that's the other sort of blinking light, obvious fit there among the top 4 to 5-ish teams up at the top of the draft with a need that's outside of quarterback. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. It truly does. They have the behemoth on the interior, the disruptor with Derek Brown, but they need some presence on the edge, and that's what Abdul Carter can bring to them. So yeah, makes sense. I'm going to go ahead. So this is now the 4th pick, and I'm going to take the best player available in Travis Hunter. And I think in this scenario here, I'm going to go ahead and put him on the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, why not? I am drafting him as a cornerback on the Las Vegas Raiders. They need secondary help just across the board for the most part, right? I do think they have Trevon Merrick is a talented safety. If he was in a better situation overall on the back end there, you might see some more plays from him there. But with how leaky the Raiders are at corner, it puts too much stress on the safeties as it currently is. So you slide Travis Hunter in there at corner. You already have the pass rush there with Max Crosby. While it's not a long-term thing, Max Crosby's only 27 years old. So he's still got plenty left in the tank. He's still a young player. So you get the pass rush, you get the playmaker in the secondary. Maybe that unlocks some of that ability that you have in someone like Merrick at the 3rd level of the defense there at safety. And you kind of start to put the pieces to the puzzle together in Vegas. Plus, it's Vegas. It's a flair for the dramatic. They're playing in a palace-like stadium indoors there. And, Travis Hunter and that Colorado Buffs team and those players have a flair for the dramatic. So it just kind of fits. But I would prefer that in this type of scenario, Travis Hunter is primarily a corner, although he obviously could also step in at receiver for the Raiders. But they are a little bit better at pass catcher than you would expect when you take a look at Jacoby Myers' success. You do have Brock Bowers as a top target, even though he's a tight end. So again, the need for a pass catcher isn't as glaring as it is on the back end of the defense in Vegas. So that's where I'm putting not Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter for Vegas.
Such a good pick. And I love the destination, and it makes a ton of sense. And I could see them doing that if their quarterback, if they say there's only one guy and it was Shedeur and he's gone, I could totally see them going that route, especially if some other guys start flying off the board. So I am on the clock at pick 4, and I think things get really difficult
5.
now. At 5, sorry. And I think things get really difficult now. McMillan's off the board, Shedeur's off the board, Abdul Carter's off the board, and Travis Hunter. I think there's a few ways I could go, right? I could say, the quarterback at another team is really valuable here since they're falling a little bit. I just am not in love with the destinations that are available for these quarterbacks. And I think there's one player at a very valuable position that's still available, and I can pair him with one of these top 8 teams, and I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to go Mason Graham to the Jets. And there's this hole in the Jets where, you have Quinnen Williams, you have these decent linebackers, you have some good young edge rushers, but your run game has been atrocious. And there's this other hole at defensive interior next to Quinnen Williams that's allowing that to happen. Imagine what would happen if you paired Quinnen Williams with Mason Graham and just let that defensive interior play together for the next 5 to 10 years, right? It could happen. It literally could happen. I think that would be tremendous. I think it'd be great for Graham. We talked about how anybody that played next to Aaron Donald throughout his career just did fantastic because you're playing next to Aaron Donald. And when the guy next to you is getting triple teamed, it's likely you're getting a lot of one-on-one matchups. Imagine Mason Graham getting those one-on-one matchups. I think it'd be a home run. So Mason Graham, pick number 5 to the Jets. You're on the clock with the last pick 6. Where are you going?
Pick 6, I like what you did there. So I'm going to stay at that position because I really, really like this guy. I really liked him kind of when he was coming into college, and now the more we're kind of diving into draft tape here, I continue to like what I see. I'm going to stay at defensive interior. I'm also going to stay at Michigan, and I'm going to take Kenneth Grant to the Jacksonville Jaguars to shore up that defense. So you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, they've had a miserable season, but they have Trevor Lawrence. While you may be underwhelmed overall with his performance, this is not the draft class to start exploring whether or not you should move on from him, let alone the fact that he's got a contract anyway. He's there, and I do think overall he's been a bit better than people have given him credit for. B, I think a change at head coach and offensive coordinator will help him out moving forward here as well. So I'm still bullish overall on Trevor Lawrence. They have Brian Thomas Jr. At wide receiver. They have Evan Ingram. Line is okay on offense, but the offensive line isn't necessarily a top of the class type of position this year. On defense, the pass rush is coming along. You have Josh Hines-Allen, you have Travon Walker, and you have some good linebacker play with Devin Lloyd, Foye Oluokun. You have your boy Darnell Savage at safety, but there's no safeties you want to take this early. Although I do like Malachi Starks. But they need help in the defensive interior, right? So you could go secondary here, but I think with Travis Hunter gone, you could maybe take a look at Will Johnson, but I'm going to go again at Michigan, go with Kenneth Grant. This guy is just an absolute bulldozer of a player at 350 plus pounds, but he moves so well. I hate to say this because a few years ago, how much I loved Aleem McNeil. And, we talked about like sort of our pride and joy and the satisfaction we get out of seeing players that aren't necessarily drafted in the first round or the top of the first round really prosper when you hit on a guy that you really, pounded the table for, like Aleem McNeil, become one of the top players of his position in the NFL. That's so gratifying, right? Kenneth Grant, to me, can be that type of player, but bigger, if you could believe it. He's got a bigger frame, but still that same archetype of a stout, powerful defensive tackle, but who moves like a 288-pound 3-tech, has the athleticism, can kind of, he offers more than just a pocket pusher in the pass rush. So while he's not quite Mason Graham in that department, I think he stands out so much with the power in his game and the athleticism he does bring that, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I like him a lot. And so looking at the Jaguars, they need to get better at stopping the run. They have some ingredients, but a defensive interior player like that who can really anchor the middle of the line can kind of be the glue that brings it all together. I think Kenneth Grant could be that guy. So maybe a bit of a curveball to end this exercise here, but I'm going Kenneth Grant with the Jacksonville Jaguars as a great fit for their defense.
I like it. Like, I really like it. It's just one of those things where there's not that many examples of teams that just stack early first round players on a defense and it actually works out. I think the Lions right now are the only team in recent memory that like actually has succeeded in doing that, right? Aiden Hutchinson, Ali McNeil, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Terrion Arnold, like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're
And
doing
McNeil wasn't in the
fantastic.
first, by the way. It's just
Right.
so
wasn't
he
in the
was the
first.
glue guy in that scenario.
But the Jags keep throwing these very, very high picks at their defense, right? You talked about Lloyd, Hines Allen, Walker. Like, how many first top 10 picks is it going to take before that group just starts playing better, right? And like, how much resources do you actually? And it reminds me of the Packers, because sometimes, like, I really think this. It's not the players, right? It's the coaching. It's the scheme. Something's not right. And it's starting to feel like the Jags are one of those teams where, like, if you throw enough resources, it should work. And if it's not working, there's other things you need to start looking at besides the players. It's somebody else's fault that you need to start pointing a finger at. Will it work if they put another one in there? I don't know, but I really like the fit. I think it makes sense. So all right, cool. So that's what we're projecting as the top 6 in an all 22 rookie draft at the moment. Maybe we'll do some more, right? Maybe next week we do 7 and 8, since there's going to be some new teams entering the or 2 weeks from now entering that picture, the draft picture. But cool, right? Anything else you want to talk about today?
I just want to wish all of our viewers luck, Godspeed. This is do or die week in the regular season. We wish everybody could make the playoffs, right? We want everybody to win, but that's just not the sad reality of sports and in life. So wishing you all the best. Hopefully Jerry Jeudy makes us look or at least myself look as good as some of those guys on Thanksgiving did, like Keenan Allen and Mozzie Smith to an extent against the Giants as well. So wishing everybody the best, as it's crunch time. It's do or die week, and then it's in the playoffs. So best of luck, everybody.
Awesome. So like we say every week, give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. Everybody, have a great weekend.